Hello, is anybody here? You don't have to be afraid. I'm just here to talk with you. I am a seasoned paranormal investigator with a growing resume. I began investigating the paranormal when I was 16 years old, where I learned the tricks of the trade from a dear friend of mine. Since then, I've been a paranormal tour guide at the Ohio State Reformatory, have been on paranormal teams where I have investigated private homes, and have given presentations on real-life ghost busting. Now, I'm on a quest to explore all realms of the paranormal through expert interviews. I'm Sydney Miller, and this is Not Afraid.
Today, paranormal teams are prevalent across the country, but have you ever thought about what goes into forming an effective paranormal team? Tonight, we sit down with renowned paranormal investigators Jack Kenna and Carly Hall, who will share their personal experiences with us and insights into how to form that perfect team.
Jack has been on Haunted Case Files, Paranormal Survivor, Haunted Hospitals, A Haunting, and My Worst Nightmare. He is a member of Spirits of New England and founder of Rensselaer Paranormal Research. Jack is also an accomplished author, paranormal investigator, and teacher. He has written Spirits, The Forgotten Souls of Bay Path, Hauntings, Ghosts and Demons, and Paranormal Research, a comprehensive guide to building a strong team. Jack is also the host of Paranormal Q&A with Carly Hall.
Carly is a psychic medium and co-founder of JC Paranormal. She is also a member of Spirits of New England. At age 13, Carly experienced a horrific demonic haunting that lasted for 10 years. At 19, she dove headfirst into learning as much about the paranormal as she could. In 2018, she met Jack Kenna and Spirits of New England and was featured on Paranormal Survivor, Dark Dreams, about her demonic haunting. Carly is also co-host on Paranormal Q&A with Jack Kenna. Welcome to I'm Not Afraid of the Afterlife, Building a Paranormal Team.
So Jack, what got you first interested in the paranormal?
Oh, I've been kind of involved with it all my life, Jennifer. I've had experiences in this house that I grew up in. I'm in the house I grew up in still. And so I always had different experiences, hearing somebody call my name, sounded like my mother. I'd go and say, "What do you want, Mom?" This is like when I was 5 years old. I say, "What do you want, Mom?" She goes, "I don't call you." Years later, I found out from a good psychic medium friend of mine that it was my grandmother, my mother's mother, that would call me just to get my attention. And it actually occasionally still happens to this day. So it's just family members, stuff like that. But my mother had a lot of experiences growing up, and she used to share those with us, us kids. And, so it really drew our interest to it. So and then I did have an experience, which was on a more recent show called My Paranormal Nightmare? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And which I told my kind of origin story, which surprisingly I had forgotten about. It was kind of pretty frightening. So I had actually buried it and forgotten about it until just 2 years ago when they asked me to do that show. And it just kind of popped back when I was watching Demon House by Zach Bagans. And he described this thing that he saw, this demonic entity he saw. It was exactly what I saw when I was 17. And actually I got so scared by watching the show, it brought it back so fast, I had to shut the TV show off. So I went back a few days later and watched it, but it really freaked me out. And 2 weeks later, they called me and asked me if I want to tell my origin story. Go figure, I mean, that's how things happen, right? So, wow. But I was always into all, the Hollywood crazy movies with the Mummy and all that stuff. So I always liked all that stuff. But I had a lot of experiences growing up, and that's kind of what got me really into it. And then Ghost Hunters, when that came back, got me back into it again too. So.
Okay. That's awesome.
Interesting. So, Carly, similar question to you. Briefly tell us about your demonic haunting that we mentioned in the introduction and how you finally banished it.
Yeah, so my haunting started shortly after I got in touch with my birth mother, since I was adopted at birth. I think She gave me a ring as a family heirloom, and I think I brought back a little bit more than just the ring. So that started when I was 13 years old, and it didn't stop until I believe about 2 years ago. But within that time span, I had a spirit guide come to me and teach me everything I needed to know to protect myself and to create a safe space so that I could pretty much survive. Taught me everything I know about the paranormal world, you know, and when I met Jack in 2018, him and Spirits of New England helped me renew my faith and helped get rid of them. So.
Yeah,
Is that when you found out you were a psychic medium?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I grew up with abilities my entire life. I had no idea that it wasn't normal for anybody to see spirits and be able to connect with people like in a different way. So it was very strange to grow up in a family without those abilities, and I felt very much like the black sheep and like the outcast. My parents actually almost admitted me into a mental hospital because they thought that I was just absolutely insane. Like they just couldn't understand. So, and that goes along with the abuse that I went through throughout my childhood and teenage years. So it goes hand in hand with the demonic haunting. You know, they want to tear you down. They pick the weakest link, you know, and basically just try to make you feel like you have nothing so that they can take over. So thank God that didn't happen. But yeah.
How did you know?
She sees spirit like real people. Like I took her for the first time. We were down in Gettysburg, and I took her through the battlefield, and we're coming through this one section where they had something going on. Some people were up at a monument doing like a ceremony. She goes, "Hey, look at that soldier reenactor guy near the cannon." I'm like, "What person?" She goes, "Just standing right there by the cannon." I said, "Which cannon?" There's like 4. She goes, "The one right in front of the car," because we had turned in. I'm like, "Carly, there's nobody standing there." She could see him though, you know, and he was just like standing there, and then she looked back again, he's gone. So it kind of made sense to me though, like they were doing a ceremony at that monument, so maybe he was standing there kind of watching over it, because he looked like he was just like, you know, standing as like a guard or something. So, but that's how she sees him, as an actual physical person.
And it's very confusing.
Yeah.
I've had so many people come up to me and like if we're going to the mall and have like kids or like adults come up to me and just be like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And then if I respond, everybody else is looking at me like I got 3 heads because they can't see them, but I can, you know. So it's very strange.
We've had it happen at lectures.
Yep.
We were at where was that again? That was at Fort Mifflin.
Yeah.
And we're giving a lecture in one of the rooms, and after she goes, "Why were those 2 women standing in the doorway? Why didn't they come in and sit down?" I'm like,
because there were seats available. I thought it was like really weird that these 2 women were just standing there smiling at us, like just watching the lecture in the doorway. I'm like, that's kind of odd, but okay.
I'm like, "Carly, it was never 2 women standing in the doorway," because the doorway was kind of like right in front of us. Like no women were standing there.
I think it would be amazing. I've always wanted some type of ability, and I don't have any, but I think it would be amazing and awesome. But I guess they say be careful what you wish for.
It has its good moments and it has its bad moments. You know, you got to learn how to control it and turn it off at times, because it can get pretty exhausting. Because at the same time, not only am I able to see spirits, but I can also feel their emotions, and I can feel their pain as well. And as well as since I'm empathic, I can feel other people's pain.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this has happened before. Someone came into work with a hangover, and I literally went around the hallway going, "Who the hell needs ibuprofen?" I'm like, "You need to go home." Who the hell had too much to drink last night? Because you're giving me a headache and I feel sick to my stomach. She went home. It was perfectly fine the rest of the day. So you can never know unless it's you or like somebody else. So it can be a pain sometimes. Like Stacy Horton, she goes through the same thing. She used to work at a urology office, and she used to complain about urinary tract infection symptoms all the time. And she never had one, but she was just connecting with the patients there who would have UTIs. So it has its ups and downs.
And Stacy's a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
She's in paranormal too, and she was on Haunted Case Files with me for a couple.
I thought that sounded familiar. I thought her name sounded
Yeah.
familiar, so
Yep.
I just couldn't
Yep.
place her. But I just think it'd be amazing. I just think it's awesome. But so Jack, what was your most terrifying experience as a paranormal investigator?
Well, I've never really had terrifying experiences as an investigator, but like I said, growing up, I had that one terrifying experience, so terrifying I pushed it out of my head completely. Which
Right.
something I just was, laying in bed, and and it wasn't like paralysis. I just felt I couldn't move, and I could feel and hear this thing coming for me, and it turned out to be, like I said, something demonic. And just as it was getting up the stairs towards my room where I was, because I could hear this thing and feel it and everything else, and as I was getting close, I was freaking out because I couldn't yell, I couldn't scream, and I'm 17 years old. I don't know what's going on. I hear this other voice say, "It's okay, you're gonna be all right, you have things to do," and then that thing screamed horrendously and was gone. And I was able to finally sit up. I'm sweating profusely and everything else. I'm like, that's it. I don't want nothing to do with this stuff anymore. And I completely pushed it out of my mind. I started focusing on other things, like my family, friends, school. Later on, focusing on I used to do a lot of hunting and fishing, stuff like that. Got completely out of the paranormal until Ghost Hunters came back. Then I got back into it again, and still had forgotten about that whole experience. If I had remembered, I probably wouldn't have got back into it at all. So, but that was the most terrifying thing I ever experienced. And while investigating, though, I think it's because I got into engineering and stuff like that.
Mhm.
When I'm on a case and stuff like that, I just find it interesting. Like, I don't think of it as something to be afraid of. I'm thinking of it in a way of trying to solve what's going on here for the people that we're helping, because that's what we do. We do a lot of residential cases. So I really focus on that. And I've seen crazy looking shadow figures, stuff like that. And I usually run at them to try to figure out what the heck it is. So I don't run away anymore. But yeah, that was the most frightening thing I ever had. And again, that was prior to ever even really getting into the paranormal like I am now. So.
Okay.
And Carly, can you tell us how you and Jack met?
Oh, that's a funny story. So it's a great Carly moment too. It was my first year going to Ocean State Paracon, and this was like before I really started getting into the paranormal community, and I was just there helping a mutual friend of ours sell her metaphysical I wouldn't say equipment, but she like sold like crystal wands and stuff like that, and
jewelry
and all that. Yeah. So when I was there, she's like, "Oh, you have to meet my friend named Jack. He's so cool, and he's like a really good person." And I was like, "Okay." So throughout the event, it was like 3 days. The first day, Jack came over and was like, "Hi, I'm Jack," and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Carly. Nice to meet you." We talked a little bit. Found out his daughter was also a surgical tech as well, so we kind of talked about that a little bit, and then went our separate ways. By the third day into the event, the last day, he had a lecture at the end of the very last lecture at the end of the event, and in between then I had accidentally friend requested him on Facebook, and knowing me, that is possible. So
I accept it. I accept anybody says a friend request. For the most part, I just accept it.
And then friend requested him on accident and panicked and then closed it out. But I'm
just thinking, oh, that's nice. Yeah. She friend requested me. Okay, I'll accept it.
Still had no idea who he was. So I go into the lecture because it's the one lecture I actually really watched. And I sit in the front row, which is important because I'm normally a back pew type of person. Like, I don't like being front and center, like in everybody's view, and I keep to myself. So front and center, I'm like, got my new friend named Jack. He's giving a lecture that's super cool. As the lecture goes on, he comes up. It's about the difference between reality and how TV portrays events in the paranormal, which can be slightly exaggerated a bit just to like add effect.
Yeah, just a bit.
Just a bit.
Just a little.
And an episode of Haunted Case Files came on, and then I realized that Jack was one of the investigators that I used to watch on TV. And so this was very significant for me because my dad passed away in 2015. This was 2018. And whenever my dad would get into an argument with me, we would take a break, sit down. We would watch one episode of NCIS, which was his favorite show, and one episode of Haunted Case Files, which was my favorite show. And Jack was our favorite investigator. So
Go figure.
yeah, so I sat there and I'm like sinking in my seat and I'm like, I made a huge mistake. Oh no, I can't. It's like the Jack Kenna. So I was like freaking out.
Whatever that means, yeah.
So then I go up to him at the end of the event and I'm like, I had no idea that was you. I told him.
And I'm like,
about
what
it.
do you mean?
Yeah. And then we kind of just went downhill from there, really. I went to
Downhill.
yeah, my first investigation was the Hinsdale house later that year, and we had a blast. That's when I really started like getting into paranormal investigating. Finally connected with people that like understood what I went through, and I for once I felt weird, feeling uncomfortable about the paranormal. Like I was the weird one around all these people that accepted it, which was awesome. So I found my people. And then I went to the Oliver house again, and then that was when my spirit guide actually left. When I feel like he dropped me off to the people I was supposed to be with, and I was okay, and I was where I needed to be. And my spirit guide ended up leaving and never coming back.
Oh,
So yeah.
he left you in good hands, though.
He did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what we feel happened.
It was funny too.
It's like,
'cause
okay, you finally met the people you're supposed to be with. You're good to go.
Yep.
it was funny too, because on the ride over I made like a fresh batch of brownies, and I had the leftover brownies on the way back home. So I realized my spirit guide didn't come back into the car on the way home, and I couldn't sense him, and I was freaking out. I was crying. I was eating the brownies in the driver's seat. I was like, I had a whole moment. But it's been a crazy few years, and it's been awesome. So this poor guy has to deal with me. So.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good.
I'm sure. And you're right where you need to be. That's exactly right. So,
Yeah.
so what has been your most terrifying case that you two have investigated together?
That
Or
would
most
be,
memorable case?
yeah, that'd be the possession case we ended up, dealing with. We didn't do the exorcism. We were involved with the exorcism, but I had to bring in a friend of mine to actually perform an exorcism on a mother and daughter. And it was an interesting case. And that it took people think like, oh, you can go in and figure out if it's demonic right away. Or it took a year to even determine that it was an actual demonic case. And there's different things you got to look for when you're doing that. And it's not obvious, because in actual demonic cases, you almost think nothing's going on at all, because they don't want you to know they're there, and there's different things that will happen that will give you an indicator that it could be something demonic. Like what happens with me is when I'm traveling there, all of a sudden my GPS will freak out and tell me to turn around and go home. So it's like they don't want you coming, so it's telling you turn around. I have to actually reset it in order for it to start working again when I'm trying to get to the location and stuff. Then there's different little things. If you think it is something demonic, there's little tricks you start to put holy water on your hands, and then like shake the person's hand, see what reaction it is. You can when you're talking to them, you can say a prayer in your head and see if they react to that. And this individual did start reacting to all these different things. There's things you're doing that there's no way that a person would know you're doing it, but the demonic can pick up on it and they react to it. So these are the kinds of things you look for.
Mhm.
So it took a year to do that. And then, like I said, we called our friend Steve Coles, who's well, they don't call themselves demonologists anymore. They call them spiritual warriors. So he's a ordained minister, and he came in and did the exorcism along with the rest of his team, which were also part of their team. That's how we knew who to reach out to. And 7 of us were there. It took 13 hours going through the whole thing. It was an ordeal in itself. And then Carly and I stayed there till about 3:30 in the morning or 3 in the morning,
3, 4 in the
just to
morning
make
till
sure
sunrise.
everything was still quiet and stuff.
Mm.
So that was probably the most, I guess, terrifying thing. You don't really think of it, you don't really think of it that way at the time. You're just trying to help the person. But it would be the most dangerous thing because you could end up being possessed yourself if you're not strong in your faith.
Hmm.
So something you got to really be careful about and think about, and know how to protect yourself from that. And you gotta be careful, because you gotta be careful what you say, what you do, how you do it, which is why you have somebody like Steve there who knows what to do, how to handle it. You just follow his lead. You do what he tells you to do, and you just make sure you follow what he says. So, and then you're all going to be safe and it's going to be fine, but you still have to worry about the people.
Yeah.
That's probably the scariest thing is the
Yeah,
people.
you're really scared for them.
For them,
Yeah. But that only took place 2 years ago now. Yeah,
Or a year ago.
year ago, year and a half ago, about a year and a half ago. But yeah, people think, oh, everything's demonic. No, true demonic things are a whole different thing. Yeah, when you actually physically watch somebody change, physically change during an exorcism. This woman's facial features changed, her stomach distended out, her neck distended out, and then right as the thing left, she went back to normal. To watch these things happen is like it's almost like what you see in some of the TV stuff, right?
Minus the pea soup.
Minus the pea soup and the head spinning. Yes, it doesn't happen, but they do. After it's over, they actually do throw up what looks like a black kind of bile, almost like tar. You'll see that sometimes. We had marble.
Yeah, we had
suddenly appeared out of nowhere, rolled across the floor.
Yeah, it was me and the client, the mother, were just leaving the house to go take communion. And right as I was leaving the living room where the exorcism took place, this glass clear marble came rolling, it dropped on the floor and rolled in the middle of the room. And I'm like, yeah, do I pick that up? Do I know what? So we looked it up, tried to look it up what it meant. We couldn't really find anything, but
things like that will happen during demonic cases. Just things will appear out of nowhere, just random objects.
Which now that I think about it, because that was after 7 hours. Mm-hmm. That might have actually been an indication that it wasn't over yet.
Right, because we ended up having to go back and found out the mother was still possessed. After the daughter called us and said her mother had locked herself in her car, which, interestingly enough, why in her car? It's the only thing on the property in the house that wasn't blessed was her car. So went to the car because that was a safe spot for it. It was the only non-blessed area of the whole house and the property. So yeah, we ended up turning around. We had to turn around, go back, finish doing that. We had to get her out of the car, had to get her back into the house because the house had been fully blessed. And once it was in there, it really couldn't do much. And Steve was able to finish up the final exorcism on the mother. And interestingly enough, Steve was we thought everything was done with the daughter. Steve gave everybody communion. So I asked a friend of mine and Steve about that. I said, well, how did the mother take communion if the demon was still? And he goes, well, they'll trick you that way. They'll do it, even though it hurts, but they'll do it in order to fool you, right? Mm-hmm. So it can happen, so a demonic can take communion, even though it's very painful. They'd rather deal with that pain than the pain of going back to hell, which is where they come from, right? Because they don't want to be in hell either, to be honest with you. That's the truth is demons don't want to be in hell either, because it's not a great place to be, right? And it's not what we think it is. It's not hellfire and brimstone. It's pure blackness. It's the disconnection from everything and everyone, disconnection from God. So it's just end yourself, and all you do is because the woman described it. It's a disconnection from everything, and all you can hear is the screams of the tormented, which are tormented by being separated. Even she was screaming, but that's all you can hear, and there's nothing else around you, just pitch blackness. So that's what hell really is. Yeah.
So yeah, that was the most terrifying case that we've ever
Yeah.
been on.
Yeah.
Which is I don't want anybody to ever go through that. And that really put it into perspective for me, because I could have been in that position. So I was very thankful that I wasn't a client like that. So it's no joke at all. But thankfully they're very rare.
Yeah. Extremely rare. Yeah.
It seems that like people are called to these things rather than just like experience them. So typically, like with demonologists and exorcists, they will actually experience a demonic haunting of themselves, kind of. So, and I believe that's preparation, you know.
Gotcha.
So it's not uncommon to have like a demonic infestation yourself if you're called to do this stuff. So.
Yeah. These cases kind of just come to you. Because with that one, I had heard from a friend of mine from high school who I hadn't seen in 25 years. And suddenly he calls me up and says, "Hey, Jack, I saw you on TV, and hey, I met this woman down in blah, blah, blah. And, you know, she thinks she has a haunting going on. Do you want to come and help us?" And he actually went with us the first time to introduce us. And he was, how random is that? Somebody I had not seen or heard from in 25 years or more suddenly reaches out to me to help this woman who's having a haunting.
At a bar he just happened to go to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like he's not even a regular there. Like he just happened to go there.
He was
in the
down
middle
there.
of
He was
nowhere.
down that area. It's a little bit southern New York area. He was visiting another friend down there, and they went out to this bar and met this woman. He lived in Florida. He was just up to help his mother with some stuff for a couple of weeks. I mean, come on, you know, how much more random can you get, you know? Or is it random? That's the question, right? Is it random, or is it supposed to happen that way? Is somebody intervening? Because he's very religious too, so that's interesting in itself. That here he gets dragged into this and finds us to help this woman. So,
Right.
everything happens for a reason. You know?
That is crazy. Like that almost sounds more terrifying than any of the movies that are out there.
This is how real demonic cases work. I mean, that's how actual real demonic cases, things intervene in order to find these people help, you know, and you're just not expecting it.
You gotta put the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, and like I said, it takes a while to sort it out. The first time we were there, no EVPs, no nothing, no activity. You would have thought nothing was going on, but something didn't seem right. Like you can just sense that something's, you know, these people aren't making this stuff up. Like they have this happen, they see this happen, and you know, and they see this little girl in their house, and you know, all these little things that is like doesn't make sense to even the history of the property.
It's like
So
a false sense
what's
of
going
security.
on? And it all really led back to the woman finally, after, and never told us this until after her exorcism was done, that she had actually tried to commit, or had committed suicide when she was 17. That's how she described hell to us. I said, "Well, what did hell look like?" And that's what I described. She described that. And it actually fits a description from actual demons who have talked to priests. When you start reading all this and start studying it, priests have written about what demons say hell really is. And it was the exact description. There's no way she could know that. So she was there. And the doctors don't even know how they brought her back. She just, you know, they were about ready to give up on her, declared deceased, and suddenly her heartbeat came back. And what I think happened was she's screaming for God, but God can't hear you. I think a demon brought her back to life to get out of hell itself, and stayed with her the rest of her life. Because she had a rough life even after that. I mean, her life got worse after that. But she always kept her faith. She never lost her faith. And I think that's why in the end it went after her daughter. Her daughter went through a lot of stuff and turned to what she's called Wicca, but she started getting into spell casting and cast spells for something to come and make her immortal and turn her into a vampire, because, you know, she'd been watching all these shows with the, you know, the
Vampire
cute
Diaries and
vampires, you know,
Twilight.
all the Twilight stuff, you know, and make her immortal. So something came, and she also was using a Ouija board with her friends to call on something to do this. And that's when I think that demon just jumped from, you know, the mother to her, because it was already there.
That's the difference between practicing a faith with guidance and knowledge and a mentor versus Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, her and her girlfriends.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Here they are 16, 15, 16 years old. They don't know what they're doing.
No.
You know?
No.
So
So that's how that case all came together. But yeah, you're right. It is more frightening than what you see in the movies, realistically, you know, especially when you're sitting there talking to this thing and this person, because it takes over, it pushes them aside, and you're talking to someone you know is not the person you've dealt with, you know, it's something else, you know, and it's a little frightening. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just very interesting. So now that we understand your background and obviously your wealth of experience and your experience together, you
Yeah.
wrote a book, Jack, a comprehensive guide to building a strong team.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit. What are the steps to building a team from the ground up? If somebody wants to go out tomorrow and say, I want to start a paranormal team, because everybody's doing that now. What would you advise for somebody to have a legitimate, strong, productive team?
Well, first thing you want to do is find somebody. Like, a team can be 2 people. Okay. I mean, it doesn't have to be 10, 20 people. Matter of fact, our team, Spirits of New England, is what, only 7 right now. I mean, we keep it small. I mean, we kept a small team. It was only ever 5 to begin with. We expanded a little bit, but you want somebody who's as interested as you are, right? You want to get into it for what I call the right reasons, to help people, you know. Some people want to get into it just to study and explore and find their own answers. That's okay too. That's good too. If you want to do it that way, that's good, because residential cases like we do is not for everybody. But you want somebody who's like-minded and you kind of have the same goals. And if you're building a larger team, what I tell people, part of what the book talks about is, you know, set your egos aside. If you're the founder of the team, doesn't mean you might be the best team leader when you go out on investigations. Somebody else might be better at that. As an example of that, Ellen McNeil is our founder of Spirits of New England, but I'm the team leader every time we go on an investigation, because I'm just better at organizing people, knowing where we want to do stuff, and how to keep everything organized and keep it going, because that's what I do for my job. Okay. I work for the Department of Defense, and I've managed teams throughout most of my career. So I'm a team manager. So that's why Ellen said, no, you know what you're doing. You're really good at it. You do that. She works with the clients because she can do well with interacting with them, just like Carly can. So we got people doing that, and Carly's a psychic. So you want to have people, you want to pick out people based on their abilities and also what they're interested in doing, right? So we cover all that, and that can build a strong team, you know. And you also will have times when you argue with each other, but you got to be able to get past those things. And we've become like a small dysfunctional family, as we say, you know, but you know, you have your arguments, you have your discussions, but you work through them, right? So you got to be able to do that. And you can't, again, you got to set that ego aside, and no one person is the whole team, right? It's a team for a reason, right? So you all have your abilities, you all have your strengths, and you got to work with that, right? So that's the first kind of thing when we're talking about that. With regards to the book, it covers a lot more than just that. One of the first things we start when we have courses Carly and I do for this. One of the first things we talk about is how the paranormal is a spiritual realm. So you want to have something to believe in, some kind of faith. And I'm not talking religion, I'm talking faith in something bigger than yourself that can offer you protection, you know, from these things out there. And that's even if you're just going to locations and, you know, trying to get evidence and try to figure out the paranormal for yourself and what it means to you and what it is. So even then you can end up, as you guys know, you can end up with an attachment if you do things wrong, you know, and you got to learn. And also reach out to other teams and other people who have been doing this a lot longer. Don't be afraid to do that, and reach out for help if you need some help or you want advice. I mean, a lot of teams will share advice and ideas and thoughts with you. I mean, I do it all the time. Carly and I do it all the time. That's why we have our paranormal Q&A on Tuesday nights on Facebook, that we answer people's questions about the paranormal or share our thoughts and opinions on things with them and our own, you know, theories on things. So as a new team, we did that with Spirits of New England. We started out, we reached out to other teams when we needed help. when things were over our head, we didn't try to do it on our own. I reached out to other people who'd been doing it a lot longer and knew what to do to help these families and stuff. And they brought it in, they'd show us and teach us along the way. So that's what we're trying to do now with the book. That's actually a reason I wrote the book. I wrote it as kind of a textbook because I was hoping to teach a course in it someday. It just actually ended up happening. So it covers a lot of things. Like I said, picking out the right people for the right jobs, setting those egos aside, and building that strong team that way and bonding together. And that's what builds a strong team, just like any type of team, right? Whether it's a team of firemen or a team of policemen or a team at work with nurses and doctors, they all got to get along and they all got to work together. And that's what you got to do with a paranormal team too. Same thing,
Now, what resources does a strong paranormal team need?
I mean, the resources are mostly like your personal resources. What are your strengths in, right? Again, it goes back to who has strong abilities to work with people, right? Who finds it easy to work with people and stuff like that? Who has good technical knowledge, okay, to work with the equipment and stuff like that? Does somebody have psychic abilities, or at least where they can sense different things? They're sensitive. You want to look at all those things. Those are your real strengths as a team. It's not the equipment or what you have. Heck, today, cell phones, stuff like that, they have everything on them that you need to investigate with. It's got a camera, it's got a video camera, it's got an audio recorder, it's got a flashlight, it's got everything you need right on that damn little device that we spend so much money on, right? So it's not so much about equipment as it is the personalities and the abilities of those people to build that strong team.
Oh, okay. That's really cool.
So what do you look for in an investigator when if you were adding somebody to your team, what would be the kind of things you look for? Characteristics, experience level, anything like that?
They're actually willing to review the audio and video.
Yeah.
And the hours and hours to do it. Let's face it, nobody likes doing it, No. There was only 2 or 3 people on our own team that will ever do it. I was one of them. But it is part of what I look for. How dedicated are they really to it? How into it are they really? I mean, they just want to be on your team because, oh, you're a cool team, so I want to be on your team. Or do they want to put the effort in to really be part of that team? Do they have the time to put in to be part of that team? Some people don't. And with people like that we run into, it's like, hey, well, that's fine. You don't need to be on the team, but if we're doing something, we'll let you know. And if you have time, you can come along, right? So we do that with people, with some friends and stuff that we know. But it's like, I'm not going to make you a team member because you really don't have the time for it. And that's okay. I mean, people have kids, people have other lives, stuff going on in their lives. But if you want to be an actual team member, what's your dedication to it? Are you going to show up when we need you to? Or are you always going to say you got something else going on? So we do have like a testing period, I guess you'd say, to see how that goes. And it lasts a few months. And again, what's one of the first things you have to do? Okay, we all been investigating. We need you to review this section of the audio and the video. And we need it done by this time because these are residential cases we're working on. So will they do it, or do they just, oh, I didn't get to it yet. Oh, I didn't get to it yet. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to do it. Yeah. Okay. All right. No, done. Didn't work out, And then I've got people who just like really bury themselves into it. And it's like, yeah. And they really get it done. And it's like, wow, you did that fast. So, I mean, you go back over it with them and you go through it yourself and you see how they're doing. And it's like, well, you missed this or you found that, but you want people who are dedicated to being part of the team. And that's the biggest thing, so that's what we kind of look for. And again, once we get a few people, we kind of cut it off, but other teams I know build larger teams and that's okay. But you want people who are going to be dedicated and not just drag in as many people as you can because you hope you can have enough people when you have an investigation. So
it's interesting you say that because Jennifer and I are just working on Not Afraid Paranormal, getting it off the ground because we've both been a part of teams in the past, but doing this together, and that is the first hump that we ran into. Is not all of them, but several of our prospective teammates who were really interested in theory when it came to, okay, we're scheduling an investigation.
Yeah.
The availability sort of
Went away.
Yeah, exactly.
And real fast usually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why, well, that's when it becomes, well, you really don't fit as a team member, but if we're doing something sometime you want to come along, that's fine, you know. And then usually you find they hardly do that either. So
Yeah.
you know, it's like, all you got to do is come along if you wanted to, you know.
And
But
we're the
yeah, it is hard to find people who really have a real passion or a real interest in really doing it, you know. Most people see what they see on TV and they just want to do that, and it's like they also get bored when it's like, oh, nothing really happened. No, this is how it really works. It's like watching grass grow, okay? You know, things don't happen every single time like you see on TV, you know. That's not how it really works, you know.
It's literally people sitting in a dark room hoping that they get a response.
Yeah, you know. And a lot of times you don't until you check the audio, you know, later on, you know.
I say you're sitting in a dark room, talking to the air, hoping that you'll get something, like you said. So
That's
yeah,
right.
you're
That's
literally
right.
just
That's
sitting there
right.
talking to air.
Yeah, that's the real paranormal stuff. Yeah,
It
that's
is.
the real stuff. Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
occasionally stuff happens, you know, and it happens fast, as you know, when it does. You know,
Yes.
it doesn't last a long time. You know, these things are quick, you know, and they may last for a minute or so, but that's a long time, you know.
Yeah, it
You
is.
get activity that lasts for a minute or so. We've had cases where we've had activity go on with communication for 20 minutes, but that's rare.
Yeah.
And that was only on a few cases I've ever seen that happen. Usually it's just boom, 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 couple minutes, minute, that's it, you're done. And then it's hours before something happens again, you know. And you can spend hours just trying to first get communication going, because especially with residential cases, nobody's ever tried to talk to these spirits before. So they don't even know what's going on. They don't even know if they should talk to you or want to talk to you. Or sometimes you got to go back a second time to you finally get that connection, and they realize you're there to try to sort things out with them or find out more about them, you know, and then they'll start communicating more. I've seen that time and time again. So yeah, people get bored fast, and then they're like, oh, it's not what I thought it was.
Yeah. Well, Sydney and I, like she said, we're started the Not Afraid Paranormal. Not going to really be doing home investigations because I'm with South Carolina Paranormal Research and Investigations, and that's where Sydney and I met. And they do home investigations, but we're wanting to go research, document, film, you know, different locations, you know, because you know, we're researchers, we're investigators.
Right. You want to find out what really is on the other side. You know, what is that? What is it? You know, things like that. And that's great stuff too. I mean, I know a lot of people like to do that, and that's important. The research end of all this is important because that gives us insight for when we're doing residential cases and stuff like that. What did people find out doing all this research, and maybe different ways to approach it when you are trying to work with these other type of cases and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
that's
and
great.
then,
That's great that you guys are doing that stuff.
yeah, but we both have done home investigations. You know, like I said, Scrappy, that's what we do, and we're all over the state of South Carolina. And we're
Right.
big. It's a big team because we cover the whole state.
Yeah. Then you need a big team when you're doing that.
But so what are some immediate red flags when seeking out an investigator for the team?
I don't know if there's any red flags immediately. I mean, you know, as somebody, you just got to talk to the person. I mean, and see, are they really going to be a fit? You know, sometimes personalities just clash. You're really just not going to get along with them. You can tell right away, you know, that I don't think this person is going to be right for us, for what we want to do, just based on them saying what they want to do. And, you know, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then all of a sudden you see them wanting to almost take over your team. You know, have you run into that? I've run into that. It's like, no, it's okay. It's not going to work out. Or you run into people that think they know everything. And it's like, oh, you guys aren't doing this right. This is the really right way to do it. It's like, all right, so you're closed-minded, and I don't want that on the team either. You think you know everything, and you're really one who's right. So no. You also got to watch out for people who will create evidence in order to impress people and to make themselves look good. I've run into that before too. Spirits in New England ran into that. With somebody would go off on their own, they'd come out, oh, okay, I got this great evidence, blah, 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 blah. And then they go back with them and nothing would happen, and they actually got caught creating evidence one time. So, it's like, they said, what are you doing? What, nothing. Wait a minute. You're making noises after asking your own questions. Like, yeah. Oh yeah. Trying to change your voice to make it sound like something else was answering. Weird. Some people are just weird,
Yeah.
but they're doing it because they want the attention, right? I mean, they want to be the famous one, the popular one, the one that always gets all this stuff. So you got to be careful. You got to watch out for that too. And sometimes it takes a while to figure that out, right? So that's why you have, a period of time where you just test them out, see how it works out, whether it's 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and see how they work out, and if they don't, then you have to let them go, and sometimes that can be difficult, but you know what? It's your team.
Yeah.
You run it and you can lay out things. Matter of fact, I'm helping somebody who's just building their team now. She's like, well, I want to set up rules and stuff like that, but I won't sound too mean. I said, no, you sound as mean as you want when you set those rules up. It's your team. You don't let people take it over. You can lay out things just like, well, if you're caught doing this, then that's an expulsion. You're off the team. If you don't follow these rules, then you could be, reprimanded for that, things like that. But you've got to set your own rules, right? Don't let other people set your rules for you. It's your guys' team. You guys set the rules. They have to follow them. If they don't, then you got to let them go, and they'll get mad or whatever, but you know what? Too bad. Because you don't want to deal with that stuff on your team. You just don't, because it's going to ruin your team. People like that will just ruin your team. People who are just all about themselves will just ruin your team, and nobody else will want to be on it either. We've seen that happen with some friends of ours. And one person again thought they were a know-it-all, thought they knew everything. Everybody else was wrong. They're always right. They get so belligerent at times. Other team members left.
Wow.
And they just say, well, I'm too busy to be on your team anymore. They find out like months later that, well, I left because of him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So, it happens. That's why you've got to set your own rules.
Perfect.
Good advice. So when you're looking at investigator night, it seems like everybody has a different preference on this. So I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but when you're bringing in a brand new investigator, would you prefer somebody who is seasoned, has a lot of experience, or somebody who's brand new to the field, or somewhere in between?
To be honest, it doesn't matter as long as they fit like with the personalities and they can get along with people. And with new people, you just want somebody, again, who's willing to learn and willing to put the work in. A seasoned investigator will already be doing that. Matter of fact, we have a seasoned investigator we just recently added, Lucky Bel Camino. I don't know if you know who Lucky is, but she's pretty well known in the paranormal community. And she's become part of Spirits in New England. And she's been doing her own stuff for years. And I think 30 years. So, but she's now part of Spirits in New England. So
We have a new investigator.
yeah, we have a new investigator, a friend of mine from work, Joe Sibilia. And Carly's still fairly new to the team too. They both came on right around the same time, I think. Not too far apart anyway, maybe a year at the most. And then we've got another newer team member, Becca, and she's still learning and wants to learn. And so as long as they're open-minded, they want to learn, they want to do things, it's good. And Becca's much more of a skeptic, so she's a little bit tougher, but she wants to understand why we do it, how we do it, and what really happens. And she has finally had some experiences. She's like, that's really weird, but she is still skeptical. So, because she never believed in any of this, until she met Sarah, one of our other team members, and they're partners now and stuff like that. And so she wants to really learn and figure out what's going on. So they're doing good. It's just having the right personalities. Again, it's just having the right click there. And it doesn't matter whether it's seasoned, in between, new, as long as they're willing to work with you and you can get along, that's really what matters. Because that's going to keep your team together. Again, those egos, just you don't want people with big egos.
No tolerance for faking evidence. Absolutely no tolerance for that.
No.
And like Sydney was saying, how some issues. It's hard to get dedicated, serious people that some just think it's just a fun pastime, whatever.
Yeah.
But Sydney and I are really serious about it, and we always have been. To learn, to research, and to investigate, and to get those that are the same and feel the same, and the dedication, and like you said, and doing the work that nobody really wants to do, sit down and go through.
That's usually the best test, is give them the work to do and see if they actually do it.
Exactly.
Here, review all this audio. We need it done by then. Oh, okay. And they never get to it. You'll find the right people. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. I knew Joe Sibilia, my friend at work, for quite a few years, and he used to always ask me about it. And then finally he said, I'm really interested in this stuff. Can you kind of bring me along sometime or something? He kind of asked, and I said, you know what? Sure, Joe. Because I knew him. He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. We get along. We're friends. I said, sure, come on along. And then I found out how really interested he was.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know until then. And then he's like, I said, can you review this audio and stuff like that? And he came right back like 2 days later. Here it all is. Like, holy shit. That was like 20 hours of audio. He got done in 2 days. Yeah, damn good. Okay, he's really interested. You come across people like that, and Carly, and I think these are people who have had experiences, and they really kind of want to know what's going on,
Right.
And I think if you can find people who've had real experiences, they haven't just seen the TV and I want to do that because I saw it on TV. But if you find people who've had experiences and they come to you and say, hey, look, try them out, just try them out. Say, look, we'll try you out. We'll see how it goes, and then just do those things, give them stuff to do, see how they work with you, talk to them, get to know them for a while first, go out and have lunch with them a couple of times, even before you take them on an investigation, And when you do take them on an investigation, like you guys are going to different haunted locations, so that's cool because it's a good way to test people out.
Mm-hmm.
Do they listen to you? Do they follow direction? Because they are part of a team, so they should follow direction, stuff like that, just like any other kind of job, so to speak, right? Because it is in a way. It's you don't get paid, but it's basically a job, and see how they work out. But look for those people who seem passionate about wanting to learn, or at least have a strong interest in it,
What about, have you ever come across people that are, everything's paranormal, every little bump, every little knock, here, you can have something on a recorder and you can make it fit to a situation.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever come across that? And what do you tend to do with those investigators?
Yeah, that's part of what our class is about, is what is a real EVP, what is real evidence, and not every orb in a photo is is a spirit, right? So you got to get through that, and usually once you start working with them and you say, look, not everything is paranormal, right? You have to teach them, right? It's like anything else. You have to become a teacher. You have to teach them, all right? And it's good that they come to you, like if you're bringing somebody on your team, they come to you with a lot of evidence that they think is cool. It's okay, because I'd rather they find a lot of stuff that we can sit down and go, well, that's not really, I can't tell what that is. We're not going to present that. That's not real evidence. It's not good enough for evidence. You teach them what you're looking for, and you don't discourage them from bringing stuff to you because you want them to learn. So, but you teach them, all right? That orb you see, it's got an orange color to it. You see that orange wall in the background there and this reflection? That's just a reflection of something in, whether it's moisture or something, it's a reflection in the camera. It's not a spirit orb. It's not this. And, so you can teach them all that. And then they learn and they go, oh, okay, all right. And then all of a sudden, not everything is paranormal anymore. And there's some people just keep insisting it is,
Yep.
and you can't help them. You know, if they're not willing to listen to what you know and your knowledge, then you can't help them. You're not going to be able to teach them, and maybe you don't want them on your team. You know, because but we run into that with residential cases too. People have experienced so different type of paranormal activity. They think everything's paranormal,
Mm-hmm.
and they watch these TV shows too, so they think everything's demon. And you got to talk them down. You know,
Yeah.
you got to talk them down. You know, it takes time. Carly could tell you about that. It takes time to talk them down.
Because what I actually was saying is a skeptical believer. I believe, but you know, I will try to debunk it first. You know,
Sure.
you can sit there and freak. I've been in situations where some other investigators are like, you know, oh no, I'm freaked out. You know, let's get out of here. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's go check it out and let's see if we can figure out what you're seeing, what you're hearing. You know, and some people are just not. They're like, oh no, it's it, you know, and I'm just not that way. So
no, you got to figure out what it really is going on. You know, that's why, you know, we tend to run towards things, because it's like, what is that?
I know.
What's causing that? Is it what I think it is? Is it a shadow figure or something else causing it? Why don't you go over there and take a look? You know, what could be causing these things? You know, what's that noise? You know, I've had weird noises. It turns out to be, one was for some reason, it was like a hissing noise, and it turned out their washing machine was spitting out water every so often for some damn reason. I don't know why, but it sounded like a hissing sound, right? The damn washing machine, you know, spitting water into the bin, you know. It's like, what the heck is that about? Because I went over there, I'm listening, and I hear tss, tss, tss. Like, what the hell? I open up the lid, there's the water spitting into the well, they got a leak.
Oh no, it's a demon hissing at you.
Yeah, it's a demon hissing at you. Yeah, exactly. You know, and you know, I always say too, like, if like people like say they want to investigate and then they go there and they get scared and they want to leave, it's like, then what are you investigating for? What are you here for? I mean, I'm here to find stuff out. What are you here for? Just an experience? You know, you hear something and you want to run.
I know. Or they ask, can
What
you
are you
make
here
a noise? Can you knock on something? And when they do, it's like, oh.
Yeah. It's like, well, you know,
You're just doing what you asked them to do, and now you're freaking out.
yeah. Well, they don't expect it to really happen. I don't know, or they do. I call them kind of the thrill seekers.
Yeah.
They just want the thrill, and then they just want to get out. You know, it scares them. I want to get out. I want to leave. Okay, go ahead.
Don't ask them to do it if you don't expect a response. And when
that's right. Yeah, because sometimes you'll get one. You don't always get one, but sometimes you'll get one. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah. It seems to happen to those skeptics a lot, or those type of people a lot. It's like, yeah, we're gonna mess with them. You know, because we can chase them out.
Very true. Very true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've covered quite a bit. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners? You or Carly, either one?
Carly?
I think we covered everything.
Yeah, you haven't talked too much. That's why. Anything from the classes you want to cover? Because I didn't touch on, like, you talk about the psychic.
Oh
stuff a
yeah,
lot.
so spiritual protection. So whenever you go into a location, it's always good to maintain spiritual protection. So keep yourself grounded and shielded. There's different ways you can do that. Everybody's unique. So, you know, if one kind of method doesn't work for you, you know, that's fine. You can find your own, but visualization techniques help. Picturing yourself being rooted to the ground and then putting up, I like to picture a hamster ball, like one of those big, huge, like human-sized hamster balls that you can run people over with. I like to picture one of those like around me, and no one can get through, just running spirits over, you know. But
that's a good idea.
It is a good visualization.
Always keeping a positive attitude, you know, that positive vibrations always helps prevent negative things from coming, because positive attracts positive and negative attracts negative. Yeah. What you put out there will come back. So, you know, always make sure, you know, keep yourself in check in terms of that. And, you know, really just, you know, have a good time, you know, even if you're doing a client case, you know, don't be a Debbie Downer and take it like way too seriously. Like, you do need to be respectful of yourself, the client, and the spirits as well. So
even just a location when you're investigating, like, you know, known haunted locations, be respectful, you know.
Yeah.
And we find you get more, more activity that way, especially when you're asking them what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
We're here to talk to you. What do you want to talk about? We want to learn from you. You can get a lot more activity that way. Even just sitting around talking about your experiences and stuff. All of a sudden they start chiming in. So
Yeah, like, oh, I've done that to somebody.
yeah.
But a huge thing I like to emphasize, and this is kind of my pet peeve for people like that are into the field, is instigating. So as paranormal investigators, we are huge advocates for the people that can't speak for themselves. Or if they can, it has to be assisted. So when you go into a location and you start instigating and claiming that this spirit in this location did really bad things in their lives and when they were alive in their body, and they're not able to defend themselves, of course they're going to lash out, and of course they're going to get angry because they're not able to correctly communicate the proper truth. So I'm huge on advocating like the proper history and being respectful of the spirits there in a location, and making sure that everybody's on good terms, like on both ends. And of course, like if a spirit, because we've come across spirits that like just don't want us in a location and feel that we're trespassing, like respect that. Like you don't want to walk into somebody's home and go like, hi, can we talk right now? And sometimes you're like, no, I don't. Get out. So treat them as humans, that they once were, or even if they're elementals, treat them with respect, even though it may not be your faith. That's their faith. So that's my 2 cents. We've come across so many people that are just disrespectful and so selfish that it puts a bad rap on the name of investigators sometimes. So
Well, as we are very famous for saying on the show, do not be Zach Bagans.
Even Zach, I've watched him where even he's come a long way from what he used to do.
He's a good businessman. That's what we like to say.
He's a businessman. That's what he's about. But I have noticed over the years, he has become a little bit more respectful. And I think that's because of what he's had happen to him when he wasn't.
Yeah.
Learned the hard way.
Yeah, he's learned the hard way. Yeah.
But
Well, that is fantastic advice. And we want to thank both of you for agreeing to give us an hour of your time to sit down and talk with us tonight. You have been fabulous guests. Everything you've said has been just very interesting.
Thank you. Well, thank you both, Sydney and Jennifer. Appreciate it. Thanks for having us on. Pleasure was all ours. So
thank you so much. I'm so glad to finally get to meet you both.
Same here. Finally got to meet you guys. So thank you.
I know. Thank you. Y'all have a good night.
You too.
Stay safe.
You too.
You too.
You feel better.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about all the sneezing and coughing.
That's all right.
Thank
Just
you
feel
for
better.
tuning in.
All right.
Don't
Thank
forget to
you.
rate and review
We'll talk
us on your
soon.
favorite streaming
bye-bye.
service. I'm Sydney Miller, and this was Not Afraid.